title for tonight's program is Modi, BJP, RSS, and the Rise of Fascism in India. And we're delighted to have Dr. Partha Banerjee as our speaker this evening. He is a human rights activist working on peace, justice, immigrant, labor, and climate rights movements. He's a writer, educator, public speaker, media critic, and a movie and music enthusiast. Born and raised in Calcutta and now based in Brooklyn, with frequent visits to India, working with grassroots organizations in that country to defeat the politics of hate and violence, bigotry, and war. He has worked with and interviewed Noam Chomsky a number of times since their acquaintance in 2000 when he was a journalism student at Columbia University. And no stranger to Brooklyn for Peace, he introduced Chomsky as a Pathmakers awardee and guest speaker at one point. His books, media discussions, and writings focus on religious, social, caste, and gender equality, as well as the corporate media's monopoly, exclusion of substantive news, and brainwashing. Without much more ado, I would like to turn this over to our respected guest.
I came to the United States in 1985 as a graduate student in biology and did my master's and PhD from two universities in Illinois. Then with my first postdoc, moved to Albany, New York as a biologist. And then after having worked there for a number of years, both as a researcher and a biology teacher, I quit my biology career because I always wanted to be in humanities and writing and social activism. So I got an opportunity to study journalism at Columbia University. So I did a master's there from 1999 to 2000. And that was my first acquaintance with New York City. I started living here and lived in Brooklyn throughout the time. First as a journalism student and then a journalist working in science journalism for ABC TV. And then I never liked it. I was so disgusted by corporate media and the way they do it. But then what do I do? So I started working as a grassroots immigrant rights organizer at Hole in the Wall organization out of Jackson Heights, Queens. And that was my first taste of political activism, so to speak, here in the United States. So then I worked there for a number of years, and then something happened. Someone noticed my work, and then International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW Local 3, which is one of the largest trade unions in the country, actually. They hired me as their labor educator. They have been running critical thinking curriculum for their workers for almost 70 years. And I was hired as their new educator, and I have worked there as a labor educator, teaching critical thinking using many different subjects, and I've done it for 14 years. Then I left that, and then I decided to retire voluntarily because I always had a plan to spend an extensive amount of time in India and share all my knowledge and experience and insight. So that is what I have started doing right after the COVID crisis was over. And this year also, I'm actually going back to India in early December to spend about 3 months and 3 months and a half working with my friends and colleagues and peers. So that is really what I have been doing. In India, to bring you back to the context of tonight's discussion, I was actually very deeply involved with this far right-wing organizations myself for a very long time. The reason being, my father was like a lifelong activist with his groups, RSS in particular, and he grew up in a very, like a conservative place in India, where RSS was very strong, and he became deeply involved, quit his studies, never finished college, and then he became a very well-known, respected activist with this organization. When one of the members of RSS killed Mahatma Gandhi right after India's independence, India got its independence from the British after a very long, violent and non-violent struggle for a long time. When they finally left on 15th of August of 1947, within 6 months of that, this far right-wing organization and their activists killed Mahatma Gandhi on the 30th of January 1948. So our RSS was banned by the government, and most of its major leaders and workers were imprisoned, and my father was one of them. So he went to jail and spent about 3 years there. Coming out, they sent him from North India to East India, West Bengal, where I am from, the city of Calcutta. And because they didn't have any Bengali speaking activist at that time. So he started working there. One thing led to the other. He got married there, quit like his activist, like full-time activist role with RSS. And then I was born 2 years later. So, and then when I was like 6 years old, he dragged me to one of their branches, and I started working with them without knowing what they were all about. I had no idea. I was only 6 years old, so naturally, I had no political knowledge. I was just there because I had friends to play with, and that is how they actually catch people young. That is one of their main strategies. As I grew up, I became known as the son of Mr. Banerjee, my dad, because he was so well known and so highly respected. He was, in fact, a very close friend of India's former Prime Minister, Vajpayee. They grew up together in the same place in North India. So, and then I became well known in their circles as myself, because I was working so hard for them, and I still didn't know what they were all about, because those things are kind of like hidden. They never explicitly talk about it, or the fact that they never really had any participation in India's long freedom struggle. They were always working actually secretly with the British government as their spies. And the British government liked them a lot. So when all the revolutionary organizations, independence struggle organizations in India were banned, and people were being sent to jail and being tortured and hanged and shot at, whatnot, RSS was freely moving about, organizing more and more, and basically growing their strength. So that is what they have done for a very long time. And I simply had no knowledge about that. When I first started understanding their real politics, that they were all about fascism, and that they were basically avid worshippers and followers of Hitler and Mussolini, and started reading some of their literature, then I was like really shocked, and I woke up, so to speak, and slowly but surely I came out of their clutches. That was like back in 1980s. So from 1960s to 1980s, I was deeply involved with them. I was a rising leader. I was the provincial secretary of RSS's student wing when I quit. And then as I quit and came to the United States as a foreign student in biology, I decided to start writing about them. And initially, there was a lot of hesitation because my father was still alive. But then I basically had to do it. So my first book, when I was still a scientist, I started writing, putting it together. And the first book came out in 1998 from Delhi, which is known as In the Belly of the Beast, an insider story. So that book got quite a bit of notoriety, so to speak. And then I became one of their main critics, and in a very unique position, because there are many, many critics, especially from the left. But I have this unique insider knowledge that nobody can match. So I have written and spoken about them for many, many years, both in English and in my own language, Bangla or Bengali. And very recently, a different book came out, which is called Gandhi's Killers, India's Rulers, My Days with RSS, BJP and RSS, where my mentor, I consider him my mentor and guru, so to speak, Noam Chomsky, wrote a few lines. So this is my personal story with RSS and BJP. Today, I just want to very briefly tell you what exactly is going on in India. So India is the largest democracy in the world. India has 1.4 billion people. 80% of India's population is Hindu. About 15% is Muslim. And then we have Christians, we have Buddhists, we have Sikhs, Jains, and many different religions. And then, as you know, in Hinduism, there is like a caste division, although many, many people simply do not recognize it, or simply, do not follow that system, myself being one of them. But all this is a very diverse kind of a country. What RSS is doing is that with its very regimented, totalitarian kind of doctrine and policies and practices, it is trying to destroy this religious and cultural and linguistic and regional diversity, and trying to create a very monochromatic Hinduism-based India that they now call Hindustan or Bharat. That is their interpretation. So obviously, when they first began way back when in 1925, almost 100 years ago, they built the organization totally on the footsteps of Hitler and Mussolini and brown shirts. So they're the way they organize, the way they have one supreme leader, the way they completely deny practically the existence of Islam and other religions in India, the way they hate Muslims, Christians, and communists and socialists of any kind. They all are very stark reminders of what happened in 1930s Germany and Italy. So obviously at that time, I didn't know anything like that. I had absolutely no knowledge. And now the difference, what has happened in recent years, by the way, this book, I strongly encourage you to go to my personal blog, and I'm going to write in the chat box the blog's link. It's onefinalblog.com. Onefinalblog.com. You can go there, and I have actually put the entire book for a free download. So yeah, and the reason I've done it is only because I really want people to know, especially friends like you, what exactly is going on in India and how serious the situation is, because India is really almost on the brink of mm, a total fascism. And if in 2024, in the next parliamentary election, if Modi's people, BJP, which is the political wing of RSS, I'm going to talk just a little bit about that in a minute. But if they come back to power one more time, then basically India will lose its constitution. India will lose its diversity, its multi-religious existence, and it is definitely going to fall under fascism, and we do not want that. So I have been actually working with Rahul Gandhi and under his leadership, a new coalition of different parties has come together, and I have been working with them remotely. And that is one of the main reasons I'm actually going back to India in early December to spend about 3 months. And at that time, I think the election will happen. So RSS, if you follow my book, and I'm going to show this to you very quickly, you don't really have to get it all tonight, but basically this is a chart that I put together in my first book where I have shown how the organization is built. So RSS is the mother organization, and they have different offshoots. One is obviously BJP, and they have BJP is their political wing, ABVP. I'm not going into the total, like the full names. I'm just giving you the acronyms. If you want, I can give it to you later sometime. ABVP is their student wing, militant far right student wing, and I was actually the state secretary of ABVP when I quit RSS. BMS is their trade union. It's a national trade union, very powerful, and VHP is their religious organization. So this is how they work. And many people, many people, including many political activists, simply do not know the connection between RSS and BJP. They think that many people think that BJP is just like another political party, just like Congress or communists or whatever many different parties we have. But BJP is not just another political party. BJP is the political wing of RSS, and RSS is actually pulling all the strings from behind. For example, today's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a lifelong RSS activist. The Minister of Internal Affairs, who is very, very powerful, Mr. Shah, is also a lifelong RSS activist, and so are all the other ministers and major party leaders, and some states are also ruled by BJP, the political party, and the chief ministers of those states are also lifelong RSS activists. So they were nowhere, and again there are so many striking similarities between the rise of BJP as the most powerful political party in India and the rise of the Third Reich in 1930s Germany, like unbelievably striking similarities. They both came to power through violence, inciting violence, creating violence, planting violence, assassinations of major political leaders, and voices of dissent, silencing the opposition, gagging on the media, and basically creating a corporate media that is basically has become the sole mouthpiece. And Modi, in his almost 10 years of tenure as the prime minister, never faced a single press conference. throughout. It's like the way Trump did it in his 4 years, never really faced a press conference. So they have really copied from their strategies. And obviously, we all know that Modi was a big friend of Trump. They campaigned for each other. Trump campaigned in India for Modi, and Modi returned the favor by campaigning for Trump here in America, in New York and Los Angeles. They had big rallies. But guess what? Just very recently, Biden and Kamala Harris invited Modi and gave them like a red carpet welcome in Congress. In fact, it was unbelievable that they give like this type of welcome to somebody whose U.S. visa was once revoked by the U.S. government because of his alleged deep involvement with the anti-Muslim riots and genocide in the state of Gujarat when Modi was the chief minister of that state. So all these things are going on right in front of our eyes. And because, especially if you think about Brooklyn for Peace or, American activist organizations that look at things differently and do exemplary progressive work. Many of us simply do not know the gravity of the situation in India because obviously we are so overwhelmed with things that are happening in other parts of the world, Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and now Israel and Ukraine, and all these things are happening. And all these people, they actually work together. So Modi is a very big admirer of Netanyahu and vice versa. In fact, he is the first prime minister in India who openly supported the politics of Netanyahu after this carnage that happened after the Hamas bombing. So we don't really have to support Hamas terrorism. And I definitely do not support that, but I have very, very deep reservation about the way Israel is doing its politics. In fact, from Columbia, when I was a grad student, I had a very precious opportunity to travel to Israel and Palestine and Jordan as a member of a journalist team. And I have actually talked to many people in Israel and Jerusalem in particular, went to the office of Haaretz newspaper and talked to their journalists. And many of us came back with this knowledge and education that Israelis are actually much more liberal. Israelis living in Israel, many of them are actually much more liberal, and they want peace than many other people that we have seen here in the United States. So again, media does a very sinister role, and I am a student of, follower of Chomsky, so I know how manufacturing consent works. Brooklyn for Peace has given me an incredible opportunity to talk about the rise of fascism in India, and particularly the organization called RSS and their political wing, BJP. And I would like to stop at this point and then try to answer any questions you may have. But again, before I close, I would very strongly advise you to download the book from the blog site that I gave you. And if you can read it, you can find many other pieces of information that I simply didn't have time to elaborate at this moment. Thank you so very much.
I'm Bruce Oltler. I'm a co-vice chair of Brooklyn for Peace. And I'm going to pose some of your questions to Partha, so please feel free to add more questions to the chat. The first questions are very basic. People wanted to know what the acronyms RSS and BJP stand for.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it, but I'm also going to write it down. So RSS stands for Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh. And you know why I'm actually writing it down? Because it's so difficult to pronounce for someone who probably never heard of it. So Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, basically it is a Sanskrit word that means National Volunteer Corps. So that's Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Then BJP stands for Bharatiya Janata Party. That means basically Indian People's Party, Indian People's Organization, something like that.
হিমেরু রাতে ওই গগনের দ্বীপগুলি রে হেমন্তিকা করলো গোপন আঁচল ঘিরে 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 হিমেরু রাতে ওই গগনের দ্বীপগুলি রে জ্বালাওয়ালো আপনালো সাজাওয়ালো এ ধরিত্রী রে হিমেরু রাতে ওই গগনের দ্বীপগুলি রে ঝরে যায়